Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Lifestyle Architects. I'm Navid Moazzez, and today I'm very excited to have Joe Pulizzi on the show. He's one of the world's leading experts on content marketing. He's an author, speaker, and founder of the Content Marketing Institute, and he also has a great event in Cleveland, Ohio, which I went to high school in Akron, so it's quite funny. It's called Content Marketing World. And you also have a great book called Epic Content Marketing, which I read a few months ago. And I mean, that's why I wanted to bring you on the show to talk more about the concepts in the book. So first of all, welcome to the show, Joe.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Always a pleasure talking content marketing, and
Definitely.
we're just trying to spread the good news about content to as many people as we can. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Definitely. I mean, first of all, tell us a bit about yourself, how you got into this, and why you're so passionate about this topic of content marketing.
Let's see. I've been in the publishing industry for, geez, over 15 years now, and I used to actually be. So I worked at a large business-to-business publisher. This is back in 2000, 2001, and our group at a company called Penton Media. So if you're not familiar with Penton, it's the largest independent business-to-business publisher in North America. Many, many different brands, all kinds of industries that if you're not in it, you'd never even know of. And we oversaw the group called Penton Custom Media, and our charge was to create content products for companies that really didn't want to advertise, or they wanted to do something in addition to what they were advertising around. So it ended up being newsletters, magazines, blogging, webinars, e-newsletters, anything where they were creating their own content to attract and retain customers. And it was starting to get some traction in 2002, 2003, 2004. And as I started to meet with more and more chief marketing officers, I realized, I said, hey, this could get really, really big if there becomes more opportunities, and if we see the barriers to entry drop. And that's exactly what we started to see. And now basically any company out there can publish on a consistent basis online for literally no money outside of the time that it takes to do it. And now we've seen all these brands and companies of all sizes get into the space. And so I was just lucky enough to sort of be involved in the industry over a decade ago and to see it evolve. And then in 2007, started what is now the Content Marketing Institute, started writing books. And even though the industry is really old, I mean, it's well over 100 years
Hmm.
old, it really didn't start to get traction till around 2007, 2008. And then people around the world started using the term content marketing in 2010. And that's when it really all started to take off. And just happy happy that it went that direction as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, happy it went that direction. But then it's just as content marketing, I love it because of the fact that now businesses don't have to advertise if they don't want to. They can really build their own audiences. They can really create content that makes an impact on their customers' lives in some way. And that, I mean, that's all we're trying to do, and just to give businesses an opportunity to do something else than to be beholden to the Google tax or be beholden to I have to pay for
Hmm.
advertising. You don't have to. It takes time. It's a different way to go to market, but you don't have to advertising if you don't want to.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you've been around for like you started in 2001 with content marketing, was it, or even around this time, right? That's when you. What's essentially is content marketing for the listeners or the viewers who are not familiar with the term?
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with content marketing, there's a lot of different formal definitions we use because most of the time we work with very large billion-dollar global organizations on content marketing. But it's the idea of I'm going to create valuable, relevant, and compelling content on a consistent basis, very, very important, to do something for the business to, and most of all, to attract and or retain customers. So if we're creating this content, we need to have some positive action for the business. That could be, oh, I'm going to try lead generation. It could be, I'm going to try to get my customers to buy more or to stay longer, or maybe I'm going to use content in replacement of other paid strategies that I've been doing in the past. So really it's really thinking and acting more like a publisher would by trying to build an audience around some kind of a content niche than to rent somebody else's audience, which is what we've traditionally done with advertising. We'll say, okay, hey, there's an audience I want to reach. That audience could be on television, on radio, in a magazine, in a newspaper, whatever. And I'll say, okay, I'm going to try to distract them for a little bit through some kind of an advertisement. That's traditionally how we've done it, right? Now we're saying, I want to be the television station. I want to be the magazine. I want to be the newsletter. I want to be the blog. And we have all the opportunities to do that. So it's just really thinking and acting more like a publisher and trying to own our own audience instead of renting somebody else's audience.
But even for maybe small business owners or like solopreneurs, online entrepreneurs, they're acting more like media companies today as well. Like if you can compare it, right? Would you agree on that as well?
I would absolutely agree with it. I mean, like, so just for, I know you have a lot of entrepreneurs and startups that listen to your show and watch your show. I mean, from our standpoint, I launched the company in 2007. We didn't have a product for over a year. All we were doing for the first 12 months was building an audience. We knew we were trying to attract marketing professionals and larger companies, and we just started to create a blog around that. I started a blog 3 to 5 times a week, created a weekly newsletter, created a webinar every other month, and just started to create a media portfolio around that. And then when we launched the product, we got pretty fast uptake of the product because we had already built the relationship. So it's actually better fit for smaller companies and startups because there's no legacy marketing strategy that we have to be beholden to. Normally, when we go into large companies, we've been doing trade shows forever. We've been doing advertising in magazines, or this is how our PR plan has been for all these years. So the biggest challenge to content marketing is actually change. Content marketing is like using a new muscle that you haven't used before. It's a little bit different. You have to exercise that muscle. Well, startups and small businesses don't have that legacy as much. So we can go right at it and say, look, we're trying to target a very particular niche audience, and the nicher the better, actually, and we're trying to create answers to their problems, be so helpful on an ongoing basis. So to your point, you see a lot of startups that come right out and that they have a blog on a regular basis. All their social media communications is around being helpful. It's all consistently based, and they're really trying to build an audience of mostly email subscribers that then they can leverage on an ongoing basis. So when they're ready to buy, those companies, those customers, those subscribers are a little bit more open to the sale because you're so helpful every other day of the week.
Yeah, I mean, you talk a lot about building an audience. I mean, we need someone to write this epic content, which we are going to get into more. But what's the first step to developing this content marketing plan and like having the strategy in place?
Well, the first thing is, why are you using content in the first place? So it's not for everyone, but you really have to think from a business strategy standpoint. Why am I doing this? Do I need more leads? Do I need to sell customers different things? Do I need to keep my customers more loyal? I mean, content marketing has been a customer retention loyalty effort traditionally over the past 50 years. That's most of the customer magazines. It was born out of customer magazines. So I think the first thing is, okay, what are you trying to do? And then really along with that is, who's the audience we're trying to target? I mean, let's say that you're a business-to-business company. You generally have 8 different buyers or influencers around your product category. You have somebody that has, that signs the check, but you have lots of other influencers and audiences associated with that. So you have to figure out who you're trying to target. Are you trying to target the actual buyer? Are you trying to target an influencer, a gatekeeper? Maybe you're actually targeting an influencer audience so that they end up spreading your content to another audience that you're trying to target. So there's lots of different ways to do it. So why are we doing it for the business? Who are we trying to target? And then I want you to build what I call a content marketing mission statement. What do you want that audience to get out of it? Because most of the time when we create a content program in any small company, they're like, oh, I want to talk about us. I want to talk about our products and services. But unfortunately, for the most part, your customers don't care about that. They don't care about your products. They don't care about your services. They care about themselves. So we've got to take a little different mindset and say, oh, okay, we're going to start creating content that's going to help our customers get better jobs, or we're going to help them be more productive. Well, how are we going to do that? So you just start asking questions on top of that. And then from that, you can start building that editorial mission statement where you're really every day, like, what's the type of content we are going to answer on an ongoing basis? Then from there, you take the next step, and then you're into the content type. So we even talked about oh, we're going to do a blog or an e-newsletter or an Instagram series or a video. We haven't talked about any of that because we got to figure out all the other stuff first. And then once we have a really good strategy and we understand what the outcome's going to be for the audience, then we can really figure out, okay, what content type actually makes the most sense.
Oh, definitely. I completely agree. And I help a lot of clients with their personal brand. And I think that's like aligned with that as well, with the why do you do what you do exactly, like why do you create this content. And I think we always fall into the trap of, yeah, we have a blog, we are going to publish every week, but we have no purpose with the content. It's just sitting there, we are writing our blog post, but it's not generating these results. So before we get into that a little bit, I want to talk a little bit about defining the niche as well, because that's narrowing down. That's a mistake many people make. They maybe go too broad. They are kind of targeting everyone. So let's get into that a little bit.
Well, it's funny. I'll just tell you a story. This is with a large company, but small companies get into this as well. So I was talking with one of the largest technology companies in the world, and they were talking about their blog. They have one blog, and they target 18 different audiences.
Wow.
And I said, how's that blog working for you? Not very well, right? Because we're targeting, I mean, basically, then the message becomes so watered down, it's not helpful or relevant to anyone. I mean, just look at the way that television has evolved into, I mean, you can get basically a video show on anything today. We've niched it down so much to really target the people that want that show. So we've evolved from 3 or 4 networks delivering television on an ongoing basis to the masses to we've got thousands of different pieces of programming. Well, if you're a company, you've got to figure out what that niche is. What of those 1,000 things that are out there available to your customers, what's the niche that you're really going to be the leading informational expert in? And I really take that seriously. I would really ask, to anybody listening to this, I would say, what's the area that we can really be the leading expert in the world on something? And that'll get you to really start niching it down. So I'll give you another example. Let's say that you're in the pet supplies business and you're going to say, okay, I'm going to do an ongoing, consistent blog on pet supplies for my customers. Well, if you just looked at pet supplies, there's a lot of competition in that category from some very, very large companies spending multiple billions of dollars a year. Going to be very hard for you to get uptake. But what if you say, I'm going to target elderly, I'll put it into your category. So like elderly families, preferably women from southern parts of Scandinavia that like to travel around in their cars with their pets. Mm-hmm. Well, now you're thinking, well, that's a lot different. Now I can really create an editorial mission around, okay, we're talking about transportation. We're talking about different cars, maybe recreational vehicles, maybe the different problems associated with trying to move your pets, maybe even more specifically, a dog or a cat. So you've got to think a little bit differently about where you can really be the expert and then what you're trying to do for your company. If you just made it so broad as be pet supplies, you're not going to get anybody to pay attention because there's just so much communication around that area. So you have to figure out, okay, what's my audience needs? What am I trying to do? And then what is that niche? So I would say go as small as you possibly can with that niche and become the leading expert. And then you can always go broader. It's very hard to go broad and then niche, but you can always start very, very small and then add categories. So if you look at Huffington Post, for example. Mm-hmm. Huffington Post, they started pretty much as a political blog. Well, now so that was the niche they started on, and then they started adding categories. Now they're into lifestyle, they're into food, they're into basically every category on the planet, but they started very small, and then as they grew, they created separate media platforms. That's a better way to go than starting so broad and not getting any kind of audience. Now we can start small, say, oh, there's that audience. Oh, then we have another audience. We might have to create another platform or an offshoot of what we've already started.
Oh, definitely. I agree. And I actually had Nick Reese on the show a while ago here, and we talked about how you can position yourself as an expert to charge premium prices. I find this very interesting as well. And especially for you, I would like to ask a follow-up. How can you position yourself as an expert through content marketing and then eventually charge those premium prices?
Okay, so yeah, 2 different things, right? So the goal is ultimately you don't want your product or service to be a commodity. So we're trying, and basically, so here's my take on it through content marketing. Your competitors can copy everything you have. I mean, I follow, there's a great author, teacher, speaker named Don Schultz. He wrote a book years ago called many books, but one called Integrated Marketing Communication. And in that book, he says that everything that you have as a business can be copied except for the way you communicate. Actually, look at Apple, for example. Technically, everything that they have from a technology standpoint can be copied. Technically can be copied. But how are they different? It's in all the ways that they communicate the customer experience. It's very, very different. So I think from that standpoint, that's our differentiation. You can differentiate it through the way you communicate. So I would say, how can you add so much value as an individual or as a small business that you become the go-to resource for anything around your product or service? So I don't know if you've had Marcus Sheridan on. Have you had Marcus Sheridan on your show?
Not yet. I have to get him on the show.
Okay, Marcus, yeah. So Marcus is fantastic. It's a United States example, but Marcus's example is great because he was fifth in his market in just the state of Virginia for installing fiberglass pools. So if somebody wanted a pool, that's what he was trying to sell, installation of that pool. Well, what did he do? He said, okay, well, we can be the leading expert in answering all the questions around why somebody would want to install a pool. Started doing that back in 2008, 2009. In 3 years, became the unquestioned leader. And what happened is because people were searching, they were asking their friends, they would always end up on Marcus's site because he was the go-to resource online for anything around how much does a fiberglass pool cost, what do I do in case of a hurricane, what do I need to know when I go and talk to somebody installing it. I mean, he had all those questions and answers for them. So what this is the biggest thing, and I love this from Marcus. When people would start to go to him, they wouldn't go and get a competitive bid. They would want to work with Marcus because he was the unquestioned leader, and they never said, I'm going to get 3 other prices on this to see if you're the best price. They never went out to that because they wanted to work with the leader. So I think from a content marketing standpoint, you can position yourself as a true thought leader, and you won't get any other bids. I'll give you another example for Content Marketing Institute. So we work with mostly very large billion-dollar companies. When we go in and do an advisory or training day, we're the only one they've ever contacted. They don't contact anyone else. They don't question our price because the price is what it is. So I think that if you start positioning yourself as not a commodity, as a true resource, content marketing can really help you do that, but you really have to do it on a consistent basis over a long period of time and really build that subscriber base, and that's where the magic happens.
Definitely. I love this. I could talk about this forever. Like premium positioning is extremely interesting. But before that, here's what we are getting into more. What makes great content, and really what is epic content marketing as your title of your book?
Well, I mean, we talked about a lot of these already, so just go through what epic is. First of all, it's consistent.
Yeah.
If you said, Joe, why do most content marketing programs fail? I would say because they stopped. If you look at most small businesses, they start a blog. I mean, according to IBM research, 85% of corporate blogs have 5 or less posts.
Yeah.
I mean, that's tragic. That means we're really good at starting things as business from a content standpoint, but not really good at ongoing execution of that. So that's one. The second thing is really pick that niche where you can be the leading expert. And another key one that we don't talk about often enough is you really have to take a point of view. You have to take a side. You can't just describe value. You have to create value. So take a position. You have absolutely the right to do that. I mean, think of an editorial in the New York Times. People read that because they want to hear the position from a leading expert. If you're the leading expert, you have to share that position with people. So I think that's a really amazing key. I think the other one, it's part of that saying, okay, how am I going to create epic content marketing? I think the other thing is you have to look at how you can leverage the other influencers in your industry. And we don't think about this enough. I mean, when I go and speak to groups of people, we talk about how can you build an organic audience? Because a lot of companies they'll start distributing content that they have nobody, they don't have an audience, so it doesn't go to anybody. So that means you have to pay for that content, or You have to build alliances with people so that they will share your content, like we've done, like we see in social media. So what I would recommend is what we call creating a social influencer hit list. So what's that? So you say, okay, where are my customers hanging? So we do all the upfront stuff, right? We do the content marketing mission. We know what the goal is. We know we're going to do it consistently. Maybe we have an idea of the content type. Okay, we've got all that done. So then we say, okay, for that audience, where are they hanging out online if they're not on my site? Are these other bloggers? Are they associations? Are they other businesses? Who are they? Make that list. And then what we want to do is we want to start building relationships with those people. We start sharing their content on a regular basis. So most of the sharing that we do on things like Twitter and Facebook is promoting other people's content and not ours. Well, why do we do that? Because we want to help those influencers solve their problems, just like we would in a traditional content marketing program. If we help those influencers solve their problems, they'll start to pay attention. They'll say, "Oh, Joe's sharing my stuff. I should start to pay attention." So once we build those relationships, then we can start to bake their information into our content. So if you start to do ebooks or webinars, or you do a really good job with your podcast, right? You say, okay, these are influencers. And ultimately you'd say, I mean, let's just talk about how it would work. You'd go ahead and you'd share, say, hey, Joe, the podcast is done. And I'd say, okay, great. I have a portion of my audience that you want to reach. Hopefully I'll share this with my audience, and then you can pick up more subscribers. And I mean, it's been done forever, but businesses don't do a really good job of then bringing that around first full circle and giving to those influencers, so that then they give back by sharing. So that's a really important part, to build that influencer list and then use the strategy, build that relationship, and then build it into content. Because once you build it into your content, they'll be more likely to share.
So, I mean, this is very interesting. That's kind of how I started out as well, with adding value to influencers without kind of asking for anything in return. I kind of started to share their stuff, as you said, on Twitter or Facebook, or actually also commenting on their blogs. I mean, that's it. Or in some cases, if they have products I was interested in, I bought that to get more access in some cases. But for someone who's starting out, they don't have any clue who, maybe they don't know the influencer in their field, they don't have any relationships. What's the kind of some steps they can take?
Yeah, I mean, so once you've done all the planning and you know what you want to do, I mean, there's really simple tools. I mean, you could, if you follow hashtags on Twitter, you can use hashtag to follow certain keywords. Like I follow hashtag content marketing, so I know who's talking about content marketing. I would use sites like Alexa.com to see, okay, where's the traffic going under certain keywords. So same for me, content marketing. I know the content marketing sites based on those well-trafficked sites. I would look at the associations in the industry target you're trying to look at. Maybe the easiest is just using Google Alerts. Sign up. You've got a free Gmail account, Google account, and then put in your keywords for your industry, the industry name, the problems that people are searching for around that. And then if you have a Google AdWords account, and then you can look at the backdoor stats of the type of competition in certain AdWords, you'll start to see, oh, okay, well, here's the words that people are buying. And then you could go in there, and the people that are buying those, you could see the vendors in those niche, so they're influencers as well. So beyond all those, that's more than enough to put a list of 5 to 10 together and to start. Where I see most people that I see a lot of companies and individuals, they share, but they don't share with any strategy behind it. So I would really put the list together and share deliberately these people, these businesses, what you're trying to get out of it, then bake it into your content instead of just, oh, I'm just going to share lots of other people's content. That doesn't work for me because I can't measure that. I don't know how I'm going to measure that ongoing.
Yeah, and that also ties into a little bit what I said earlier with creating this. You're creating content, but you're not creating with purpose. And the same thing a little bit with sharing other people's stuff. Why are you sharing it, right? So, I mean, I fell into this trap myself, like just creating content, but I didn't know why I'm doing it. So sometimes now I'm putting together I know how I measure my success right now is in subscribers. When people sign up. You can have a different goals, but I think that's the most important metric for sure.
That's worth saying again. What you just said is so important, because now there's lots of different metrics we can look at, right? But if there is a holy grail metric to what we're talking about, it's subscribers. So if you so what I can do with subscribers now is I can build a subscriber list. And then as I get more sophisticated, I can start to take my other databases, whether you have a CRM or a Salesforce database or not, whether you use our marketing automation technology, that all doesn't matter. All you know is you could say, okay, I've got a subscriber list, and then I can start to show what those subscribers do differently than people that aren't subscribed. So then you can start to look at, 30% of my subscribers buy something. Or if a subscriber buys 10% more or 10% higher price than a non-subscriber, and you can start to do these kind of gut checks and say, wow, it is really valuable, and find what I would call a Moneyball number. You can actually find the number that makes the most sense for your business and drives your business. So for example, for CMI, we know that those people that have been subscribed to our newsletter for at least 6 months or more generates 80% of our revenue. So what that tells me is that I am not going to sell somebody as soon as they come to the site. It's actually pretty useless. You're not going to buy unless you are a subscriber to our stuff. So all I want to do is I want to get you subscribed to the content, and then I can work you through and nurture to opportunities that we can drive revenue. But if I didn't know that, if I didn't look at that subscriber, then I don't know. Like, maybe it's working, maybe it's not. It's just good to have these subscribers. Now we have a really good strategy to understand that subscribers are the most valuable that of our entire business, actually. And as a CEO, I can say, look, we want more of these subscribers because they're doing these types of positive behaviors.
I mean, I know from your site, Content Marketing Institute, that you publish content, I think, every day. Like you have, every day of the week. So that's probably not possible for maybe someone starting out. Probably just going to publish maybe a podcast and a blog post per week or something. So, that's doable. So how do we create with purpose so we actually get result from the content we put out there? So maybe we have a blog post, but we actually get people to sign up to our email newsletter from this.
So the frequency is important. Don't get me wrong. We changed. We used to be 3 times a week. Then we did 5 times a week. Now we added weekends. So 7 times a week, we've got a blog post going out. We've got podcasts, webcasts. We've got a magazine every other month. We've got events all over the country and all over the world. So we've really expanded that, but we started very, very small. It was just me for the longest time. I was blogging Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and every Friday I would have an e-newsletter. We were really super small business. Like, just picture the smallest possible business, just me with just consulting revenue. So I made the time to do it because I felt it was important. Most of the time, small businesses don't make the time, not because they don't have the time, but because other things they feel are more important. So you have to really say, okay, is this that important that you need to spend the time? Well, if you don't have the time yourself, there are lots of resources that can help you get there. You can hire freelance writers. You can hire people to help you with your podcast. You can hire people to do your webinars. This is freelance type dollars you're talking about. So if you have a little bit budgeted aside, anybody can do that with any size business. So what I would say is pick something you can have impact and do it on a regular basis. So if you said that you can only do the best possible content for that niche that you're targeting and you can only do it once a week, well, make that the best blog post, best communication possible for the industry for that one time a week.
Yeah.
There's Andy Crestodina is a good friend of mine. He runs an agency out of Chicago. He can only, I believe it's every 2 weeks. He felt that because of his travel schedule and because of his clients, he could only blog once every 2 weeks. But that blog post is amazing. It's shared by everybody because it's so impactful, so practical, so how to. So I think that's what we have to think about. Like, okay, we know we have limited amount of resources. How do we sort of play that middle road to say, okay, we know we can do it this frequently. I would just say whatever you do, you have to come up with a subscription component. There has to be an email component there where you can give something away for free. An ebook, a report, something of real value so you can get their email information and then communicate with them on an ongoing basis. That might just be every time you blog, they get an email update. but you have to focus right now. And that's the one. If I had a regret, I didn't start early enough focusing on subscribers. It probably took about 2 years of blogging and all kinds of stuff before we really realized that, oh, I need to get a
Yeah.
subscriber database, and we got a late start to it. I mean, now we're doing very well, but I wish I'd have had those 2 years back. I don't know where we would have been at that time.
Yeah, I mean that's a common mistake a lot of people make. Like I think Pat Flynn said that, even Derek Halpern, and something Derek Halpern actually talks about. He says that 20% you should focus on the kind of content creation side of things, and then you should focus the rest on promotion. And then maybe you don't need to, if you put out a really epic piece every 2 weeks or every week, then you can focus all your other efforts on promoting. So I mean, how do you promote your content?
I would probably say that Derek's got a really, really good point. Where I see most businesses get in a rut is they just feel like they had to create, create, create all the time,
Yeah.
but they don't have an audience. So where probably a better way to do it would be to like you said, focus on some really amazing information, something, right? Let's say that's that one blog post a week. And then you might want to even put a little paid behind it, get that influencer strategy going, really promote it to your social media circles, the email databases you have. Get that out as much as possible. Repurpose a little bit depending on how you want to use that. You could bring in ebooks off of the blog post. Maybe you say, oh, and these 6 blogs go together, and that becomes an ebook. So you can think a little bit more creatively about how you create content. And then once you get the audience, honestly, once you get an email audience that actually is loyal to you and will start to open your stuff, almost all that battle's done. Because what we see, so we send out 10 o'clock Eastern time every day, our email goes out. We'll see a little bit of social sharing before that. We publish it at 7, but the email goes out at 10. So we don't see much in that 3 hours, but once the email goes out, that's when all the social traffic happens.
Wow.
So the email is steroids for social media. So if you want to get really good social media sharing, build an email database, and that's the most important thing. So everything you do right now around your content program should be to build an opt-in database and to get people to open that email on an ongoing basis, and that will solve most of your issues. So I think Derek has a point, but then as you get an email subscription data, but then you can feed that a little bit more, and you'll see more sharing. As long as it's continually valuable, people will open it and share it.
But is that how you know if the content you create is epic? If other people are sharing it, is that how you measure? Or if they sign up? Is it like both ways, kind of?
Yeah. Measure it all kinds of different ways. So the number one measurement of every piece of content that we create is new subscriber growth. Because what you're talking about our blog, the goal of our blog is to get and keep a subscriber. So one, I want people to continue to open and continue to read, but I also want them to spread that so that we get new subscribers in. So every piece of content that we send out has a number next to it, and that's the number of new subscriptions we got off of that. Now, by the way, I know there's not a direct relationship, but we use that as a kind of a key measure to say, okay, can we tell how well a post has done? So that's number one. But we look at social media shares. So we have I think it's over 200 contributors now to the blog. So every contributor is measured. We measure them on the number of subscribers, we measure them on the social media sharing, and we measure them on the traffic to that post. Then once we measure those subscribers are then measured ongoing through, okay, are they going to events? Did they sign up for our magazine Chief Content Officer? What's the revenue that we're coming for? We can't tell the revenue right away. It takes about 9 to 12 months for us to see revenue through the buyer's journey there. So it's 2 different types of measurements. Right off the bat, I can start to see something, but really the most important measurement is around 9 to 12 months away, where we can actually show some kind of a correlation to revenue.
Yeah, because it takes time. People shouldn't expect like content marketing. I mean, you want to do content marketing for your brand or business, but it's not coming right away. If you're just launching, let's say, a personal brand, you're not going to probably make a lot of money right away unless you're a thought leader who's just starting, and you're already well known.
Well, there's a couple takes. First of all, on the personal brand, so I launched the company in April of 2007. and probably didn't get good traction for 3 years. Actually, I was on an interview earlier today, another entrepreneurship interview, and I said I almost quit the entire business at the 2.5 year mark.
Good you
And then,
didn't.
well, here's the thing: that 2.5 year mark, that said failure. The 3 year mark said success.
Wow.
So somewhere in that 6 month period, if I wouldn't have been as patient, wouldn't it's like the whole thing would have been lost. So
Yeah.
it's like, you're right, we want these immediate. It's different with a personal brand. It takes a while to build that. On a business, you have to at least have it go through the sales cycle, the buyer's journey.
Yep.
So if it takes, let's say in general, it takes somebody from the time that they've started looking at the possibility of your product to actually buying a product. If that takes 9 months, you have to at least give it 9 months, probably more, until you can start to actually measure anything of substance. You can do all the stuff we talked about, but you're not going to be able to measure revenue until you're at least through a buyer cycle.
I mean, this is interesting because I know personally, like personal branding is definitely not a sprint; it's a marathon. You know, you have to really be patient, have dedication. Of course, it's like passion comes into this too. Like in order to work on your craft every single day and become, I mean, the go-to person. You know, either you can be so good that you really enjoy it, or then you just work on it every day till you become the go-to source in the field, like you've done over the years in a very profound way.
Well, like, for those people listening about personal brand, I can probably say that there's three legs, but there's one other one that I want to talk about. So you have to have a book of some kind. I really do believe this. It doesn't have to be a print book, but it helps if it's a print book.
Yeah.
So the book is the one thing. Having an ongoing, consistent blog or communications online is critical. So it's a blog, the book, and then number 3 is public speaking. So if you can get those three together, that's sort of the three-legged stool for thought leadership for building your personal brand. But if you need a kickstart is a research project. So figure out something that the industry really, really needs to know and doesn't, and then start to partner with some people who have resources and say, hey, I want to do a research project around this. Well, when I started doing, this is probably end of 2007, 2008, started doing our content marketing benchmark study. And then that started smaller, and then we went and built it up to something bigger in 2010. That has been key for everything else that we've done, because that research is probably the most linked to and cited of anything we've ever done, and that's helped build everything for the business.
Wow. I mean, it's interesting as well. I'm actually working on a book on branding and personal brand, especially for my audience. And let's talk a little bit about repurposing. So we spend all this time writing blog posts, doing podcasts like this one. How can we repurpose content and like spread it around different mediums online?
So if you look at, so let me talk to you about I've written 2 books. I've co-written one, and then of course Epic Content Marketing you talk about. Epic Content Marketing, I'll be completely honest with you, 75% of that content was already written in one way, shape, or form. And but the plan was to do that. The difference is that what most people do with repurposing, they say, oh, I've got this great piece of content. Now how do I use it for all kinds of other stuff? That can work, but it takes so much time. It's not strategic. What I want you to do is say, oh, okay, I'm going to create a blog series, and here's what I'm going to talk about. And these 6 blogs will become an ebook. Or I'm going to blog about these comments and kind of build up your chapter areas over 6 months. And in 6 months, I'll have 75% of the way to my book. So all these things work together, but you can start to play them in and out. So our 42 content marketing examples, those came from blog posts. So we repurposed the blog posts into the ebook. The research that we've done is in the book. A lot of the ebooks that we've done have become webinars. But you have to think of, we're not just doing one thing and it's going to be one thing and that's it. You want it all to play off of each other. So a good thing to do from an execution standpoint is, if you have an editorial calendar, which hopefully you do, you put down and say, okay, here's the blog of the week, blog title, keywords, all this other stuff, the outcome for the audience. And then that last one should be blog to what? What's that blog going to become? It's going to become part of a white paper. It's going to become part of a podcast. It's going to be always think about, sometimes it can't be part of something else, but almost invariably 75% of what you create can be part of something else. It's just most of us don't think of it and we don't plan for it. So that's what I would start to, anybody listening to this, just to start to think of all the content you're creating and all the other ways you should think about planning up front for what it's going to be. Like, for example, your podcast become blog posts, become video posts, become, you already plan for that. It's a lot easier when you plan for that happening.
Yes.
And most people don't do that. So you have to plan for repurposing.
Oh, this is awesome, and I think especially with the like repurposing into ebooks or like you did for your like book, Epic Content Marketing. I mean, what's really smart is the perceived value is much higher as well when you put it into a book and you have like maybe some formatting, nice cover to it, as well. So then people maybe like in your case they paid for it and you sold a lot of copies of it as well.
Well, think about this, right? We give away our ebooks. We give away our white papers. Our webinars are free to sign up. Our podcasts are free to listen to. Our blogs are free to sign up to. All that's free. The only marketing, there's only two types of marketing that people end up paying for. One is a book. There's already been a perceived price of, $20 US, 20 euro, whatever the case is, on what the value of a book is. So it's already perceived as more value than anything else. The second thing is an event. People will pay to go to an event, which is also marketing for you, which is why we get so focused on digital, where sometimes we forget that print is of such value and really can differentiate you from your competition. And events are key. So I think that if you're looking to really break out and you're like, hey, all this digital stuff, there's too much commotion, or in my niche, I want to do something else, really think of, is there an opportunity for a book or is there an opportunity for an ongoing event series?
Definitely. And I mean, you mentioned a little bit here as well with the editorial calendar. And in the beginning, I think I struggled with it. I'm trying to get better with that and really structure it and creating with purpose now. So I plan it out more. And I think someone who does this extremely well is actually my friend John Lee Dumas. He's like batching all.
He's great.
He's phenomenal. He's like batching all his interviews. I know he went to Paris or something for a vacation, 2 weeks. His business, like $200,000 business every month, it was running, without problem. So how could someone new develop like this editorial calendar and maybe even start batching something in there?
Well, the first thing is the low-hanging fruit of this, if you're struggling for, well, what content should I create, is to just list your customer questions. I mean, if you know the industry really well, you should be able to list 50 questions in a half-hour period of time. It shouldn't take you very long to do it. So just start listing those questions. And really, that's, in a lot of cases, that's what John did with this podcast. He basically started who are all the people that I want to interview, that entrepreneurs would want to hear from. He started listing those. Well, what I love about what John does is he batched it all on, I think he produces all of his podcasts on Sunday.
On Monday or something. I don't know.
Monday, on one day. So when I did the last time I was on his podcast, I did the I was on his show twice, but the second time I was like number 8 of 8 on Sunday when we were doing these interviews. So It only took him one day. I think it was one day of interviewing and one day of production, and he had 5 days to do other stuff. So from that standpoint, it's fantastic. I think that the most important thing with that editorial calendar is just to get one. Just start with one. If you can only start a week out or 2 weeks out, that's great. I mean, the way that we like to do it is start with like an overall year. Here's what the editorial would look like, but then get really specific for that quarter, for that 3-month period. Start to get specific, and here's what's going out Monday, here's what's going out the next Wednesday, and have that into your calendar. Because what I want you to do is think like a publisher. If you're thinking like a publisher, you produce your content the same time every week, every month, every year, whatever the case is, like clockwork. I want you to create an expectation that your content is that valuable and people want to get to that. So give it to them at the same time, every time, so they can look, and that's how you'll build that subscriber relationship. But I think most organizations, most small businesses, you just need to create the calendar. Create, what is it going to be? What's the topic? What's the outcome? What are the keywords? Who's doing the draft?
Yeah.
Create that, if you're using an online system like a WordPress, it makes it fairly easy to get that done. And you don't, you
How do you do
really,
that? Like, do you use a
yeah,
tool
I mean,
for it?
you could do a couple different ways. If you just wanted to use Excel or Google Spreadsheet, that's fine. But there's really good tools out there. Like Kapost is a great tool. DiviHQ is a great editorial tool. AtTask is a great editorial tool. All of them have really good built-in editorial tools for content, and they don't cost you an arm and a leg.
Awesome. I mean that's extremely helpful. I think for a lot of people they are starting out, they don't know they are creating content. That's one thing, but we need an editorial calendar so we can actually create with purpose. Nick Reese mentioned something. I have my 2-year plan done basically for my content. I was like, wow, I need to get to that point. He's so specific. I mean, he may not create content a lot, but when he does that, he's actually creating with a purpose, and it actually has an effect on the brand he's building for himself.
Well, I mean, just to give you an idea, so we just had our planning meeting for 2015. So in May of 2014, we will start to plan and we'll finalize over the next 2 months what we're going to do for 2015. That doesn't mean that there won't be special opportunities to do things that we don't know about, but at least what we know of, we've got our magazine, our event, our blog posts. Those are all set up with a certain mission and direction based on what the organizational goals are.
Definitely. I mean, we talked a little bit earlier about how you're using social media. So kind of how does content marketing tie in there? How do you get these shares? I mean, if you don't have a big email list, how do you get started there? I mean, I can tell from a personal example, I use like kind of list post a lot. I wrote a post on personal branding tips and asked a lot of experts, which got a lot of shares despite at the time I didn't have a lot of traffic, but all of them, they helped out with that and kind of went viral, at least for a personal blog. So what's some other strategies you can use to get a lot of traction?
The best strategy is the one we talked about. I would be very deliberate, put together your influencer list of 5 to 10, and every day for a month or two, start sharing their content. I use a 4-1-1 schedule. So basically for every 6 posts that I share on social media, 4 will be about those influencer posts. There'll be other people's content that I'm sharing. One is one of our pieces of content that we created, our blog post, our podcast, whatever the case is. And one would be a salesy type tweet. We got an offer that most people don't pay attention to, but we still get that in there. That's more about the company. We use that for a long time and still have a formula around that works very, very well for us. And I think that's the best way to do it. I mean, on social media, you got to give. You got to give a lot, and it takes a long time to build a relationship with these people. And then it's not rocket science. What you did is a lot of organizations use. It's very effective that every once in a while you'll create a piece of content that integrates those influencers into your content. And then once you get once you get a subscription, once you get enough traffic that people will see your site as value, then you can start to bring those influencers in to start create content on your site. I mean, it takes a while to get there. Some might take a year, might take 18 months to get there. But in the meantime, what John Lee has done really well, what you've done really well, is to go out and interview those experts. You create content, they share them out. You've got best practices posts that you could do with the leading experts. I mean, there's a lot of things you could do, but I just think the influencer list is the best way to go.
Yeah, or I mean, in some cases as well, like how you use the influencer expertise. Like if they wrote a blog post on a topic, then you can write how you apply that. I think that, I've also seen some exampms of that. And even more powerful, maybe.
Well, I mean, that's a great point. I mean, let's say that you come up with your editorial calendar and you say, okay, I'll give you a personal example for me. I need to know about the ins and outs of buyer personas. Well, I'm not a buyer persona expert, but there's Tony Zambito and Adele Ravella out there that are really amazing at buyer personas. So I'm going to go out and ask them. And so in like my chapter of Epic Content Marketing on buyer personas, it wasn't my chapter. It was Adele Ravella's chapter. And I asked her to put that together because we built that relationship over time. So that really if you build these relationships, you don't have to create as much content as you would normally. once you find those experts and you can integrate them into your content marketing strategy.
Yeah, they will basically help you out and take some burden off your shoulders. So
Absolutely.
I mean, that's great. But I've also seen something else lately. A lot of Facebook groups are kind of coming up, and a lot of people are using that to market, especially new ones I've seen. New guys coming in, they're starting vlogs, and since they don't have a lot of traction on maybe Twitter or Facebook on their fan page, they use the groups to get more attention. I don't know if you've seen that as well.
I mean, whether it's Facebook groups or whether it's been bulletin board groups, or it's LinkedIn groups.
Yeah.
I would say that any business should look at the ones that there's an audience going around, and should you insert yourself into that conversation and be helpful. The only thing I would say about social media that I get concerned, and let's look at Facebook's recent changes, right? Facebook, less and less of, if you're a business, less and less of your organic posts are going to show.
Yeah.
For the majority of businesses. So it's gone down significantly. What we hear is that generally about 5% of your own post will be seen by your audience. And in some cases that might go down to 0. So the only concern is, if you're going to build an audience around those channels, you don't own that audience. Facebook owns them, or Twitter owns them, or LinkedIn owns them, wherever you're having the conversations. You have to realize that. And what we want to do, we want to convert those assets, which really aren't assets, over to a subscriber. That's what we're trying to do. So use your own rent-to-own strategy and get them signed up as part of your own subscription network. I have no problem with what you said, using it and becoming an expert in certain groups and building. Rand Fishkin from Moazzez has done a great job on Quora. And I see how he uses Quora, positions himself as an expert, gets a following. That's fantastic. But Quora could shut down tomorrow. And Quora could say, oh, Rand, you don't have any access to your followers tomorrow, just like Facebook has done, and said, no, sorry, Starbucks, you've built up 30 million likes, but unfortunately, only 1 million of those people are going to see your post now. I got a problem with that, so we can't put ourselves all the control with those other social media outlets.
I mean, it's very interesting actually. That we see actually something I've seen as well is LinkedIn group, not LinkedIn groups, LinkedIn publishing platform. I think they just launched, and also Quora. I see some influencers I've been following lately. They actually publish entire blog posts there. They have like a Quora blog. So it's like coming up on those platforms, maybe to grow an audience in other spectrums. I don't know.
Yeah, I think those are I publish on the LinkedIn platform, and I've been doing it for a long time. It works fantastic. It gets a lot of followers and activity on that, but you've got to make sure you understand what's your goal. My goal for that is to get people over to our other own blog posts and get people to subscribe to my other channels, not to get them to follow me on LinkedIn. Yeah. As much as I like LinkedIn could say tomorrow, sorry, you got 28,000 followers on LinkedIn, but you don't get access to those anymore. They're not going to see your updates. Well, that's no value to me then. Yeah. So I've got to convert, while we have this opportunity, we want to convert that to our own database as much as we can.
Can anyone get access to that, or is it just like leading influencers they saw? I mean, I think they're launching it.
No, everyone can. So, I mean, I was one of the LinkedIn influencers. So they had about 400 or 500 that started with it. And then they added up to a beta group. And now I believe if you request it, you can get access to published content on a regular basis.
Okay, that's great. I mean, something else I wanted to cover before we end here is that, sure. I mean, I've seen that you do a lot of speaking. You even have your own event. So, do you, when you do a speaking gig, do you actually repurpose that into other platforms, like your blog? You have a personal blog as well, and the Content Marketing Institute blog. How do you go about that?
It's all meshed together.
Yeah.
So I mean, like my epic content marketing presentation, which I do for keynotes, that comes partially from Content Marketing Institute blog posts and comes from the other stuff in the book that I was doing, but a lot of that has already been repurposed. All the case studies that I talk about, they've all been on the blog before. So when I do a new if I have to do a new deck or a new presentation, it almost is always repurposed from another presentation. Now, granted, it does take some time. I still have to go through it. I still have to think about the examples. I still have to time the jokes. I mean, all those things still have to work. But for the most part, 90% of the content has already been created. And then I customize about 10% for each show that I do, so that I'm doing a little bit of my homework. But it's not I mean, I do a lot of speaking now. Usually when I'm out, I'll do 3 or 4 speeches in a week. So it's
Wow.
quite a bit of speaking, but I'm not recreating the wheel every time.
Okay, that's great. It's great to know that you actually can use your blog post. Even I mean, if you're not on that stage yet, you can use it for your webinar. Just put together some slides and just present. It's live. It's more higher perceived value. So
Absolutely. I mean, you should be able to say, like, if you plan for it, you'd say, "Oh, I want to do a new presentation on content marketing and email marketing." Well, then you could say, "Look, then I'm going to do 4 or 5 blog posts as part of my editorial calendar. I'm going to get all the case studies for it, and then I'm going to take that, and that will ultimately become my presentation."
oh,
I mean, you
definitely.
just have to plan it out, and most people don't.
But who are some like in content marketing space? Who are using content marketing extremely well for building their personal brand? That's what I'm interested in. Like on in this space online.
Like, who's doing it
Yeah,
very well?
who's doing it extremely well?
Oh man, in our space, I love what I'm partial to those that are building a personal brand to build a business.
Yeah,
And the reason why is, and I'm not going to give you names,
yeah,
but I've seen a lot of people that you'd look at and they're very popular online.
yeah,
They got all kinds of followers and you'd say, "Wow, they've really made it," but they actually are having trouble putting food on the table
yeah. I agree.
because they haven't created a business model behind that. So what I love is I love like a Jay Bear from Convince and Convert, who has a very powerful agency behind him. So he's monetizing his personal brand into the agency. Brian Clark from copyblogger.com, he's leveraging his personal brand into Copyblogger to sell more software services. So I mean, those types of examples, that's what I really want to look at instead of just building a following. So that I would look at I mean, because you're not going to sell books. I mean, books don't make any money. You're
Yes,
not.
position
How
yourself
are
as an expert, right?
how
Yeah,
are you going? I mean, I would really think of how are you ultimately going to make money? If you are an expert, what's the business model behind it? I would look at, is there a media business model? Is it a services business model? Is it a product business model? And really think about it because you're not going to for the most part, make money off of the content directly. It's going to be off of something else.
yeah. You just gave me some great ideas because I have like a branding agency, so I can really use that to like monetize that more and drive more business. So
Well,
that's great
so
ideas.
yeah, I mean, I mean, I'll just be get a little personal with you so you understand how I look at it. So, yes, do I get paid to do events? I usually get paid to do the event. You could say that okay, Joe's making his money off of the keynote, but really that's not how we make our money. That sort of just is nice to have. It sort of presents a market value. But really, what I want to do is okay, I'm going to an event. I want to get these people to understand content marketing so that they hopefully end up signing up for Content Marketing Institute updates or going to a webinar or doing some kind of behavior on the back end of that presentation. Because once I get them as a subscriber, then I can get them to come to Content Marketing World. I can get them to sign up for a webinar, which are sponsored. I can get them to go to my website, which is sponsored. So once I get them signed up as a subscriber, I have 3 or 4 or 5 different ways to make money off of those people, rather than just the event itself. The event itself is just a way to get in front of people. So,
Definitely. I mean, throughout this entire interview, you shared definitely some epic content and given me some ideas actually as well, how I can take my business to the next level. So, I mean, what are you working on now? Where can people find you online?
I'm at Joe Pulizzi on Twitter. You type in Joe Pulizzi, Pulizzi. You'll find all of our resources in
Yep.
contentmarketinginstitute.com. The book is at epiccontentmarketing.com. But the big thing I'm working on right now is we're gearing up for our big show. So Content Marketing World, as you said, is in September in Cleveland. And we'll have over 100 speakers. We're expecting well over 2,500 people there this year. So I'm in charge of programming. So that's what I do. Everybody else has got their own jobs, but I'm in charge of programming. So I got to make sure that the speakers' presentations are
Yeah.
right and review all those to make sure that the audience experience is the best it could possibly be.
Sounds like a very busy summer. You can find everything we've talked about today over at navid.me/25. So, any final words to the audience, Joe?
Oh boy! So I would just say to your audience, to be paid, to do the planning. I mean, most small businesses, most individuals don't do the one thing that I would want you to do is build out your content marketing mission statement. Who is the audience? What are you going to send them? What is the outcome you want them to have? Build that out and then really figure out the business model underneath that. How is it going to ultimately drive sales for my company? Is it going to save costs for what I'm doing? Is it going to create better customers? Whatever, underneath that mission statement. If you've got that figured out, you've done the hardest work possible. It's not the hardest, but the most important thing you can do. And then all the other things you do from a tactical level will make sense.
Definitely. Thanks so much for coming on
Yeah.
my show, Joe. It was really great content you shared here. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for having me. Truly appreciate it.